You watched the video, and in the video they talked about things like intellectual conversation and scholarly credibility. Are those things that you guys think about when you're writing your papers?
Yeah, it's definitely something I think about. I definitely think about the whole intellectual conversation piece whenever I'm writing. I love the idea as being recognized as an intellectual. I love the idea of being respected for the work and research I've done. I just think that's a really cool thing, so it's definitely something I think about whenever I'm writing.
I know that the video mentioned things like intellectual conversation and scholarly credibility, but if you don't think about it in those terms, what if I said, what does the word plagiarism mean to you?
Like you're stealing someone else's hard work, their thoughts, their everything, because they've worked so hard, sometimes for years on this research, and then you're just 20 minutes later, you looked it up online, you found what they did in 20 years maybe, and you just pass it off as your own.
So it sounds like you guys are mostly giving examples of avoiding plagiarism, in your schoolwork, or as you said, when other people publish their research. But do you think plagiarism is something that only happens in the classroom?
I definitely think plagiarism happens outside of the classroom. I think you can see that when people are writing books. If someone has not cited their research thoroughly enough, we can see that there's some gaps in the information they have. I think it also happens within journalism. I think you'll see if someone does not do their research properly enough or does not give proper citations, we wonder where certain facts come from, and people who are reading may not get the entire truth. And that's what's important. It's preserving the truth and preserving the people who discovered it.
So you guys have definitely given a lot of reasons why we should not plagiarize and why we should properly cite our sources, but then the other part of this is that you have to actually cite your sources. So now we're going to kind of talk about the nitty-gritty and the mechanics of citation. A lot of students seem to struggle with it, I found, not just the people who come to us for help, but then the people who don't come for us for help, and then they get bad grades. What do you guys think about citations?
One thing that I kind of do is, like, as I quote something, then I'll do the citation, so I don't have to worry about coming back to it later and then, like, going back and doing it. And I feel like in high school, like, you use MLA for the most part. Like, you're taught MLA, you know how to use it for the most part. You go to EasyBib, because EasyBib, you just put the website in there and it will pop out your citation. But once you're in college, there's like MLA, there's APA, there's Chicago, there's the one we use in sciences. There's so many different ones that you're not necessarily always taught how to cite, and then that's when you kind of like, I'll just figure this out myself, and then you're like, that's not even close to what it should be.
I would say that although citing does take time, because you do have to do your in-text citations, you do have to do your references at the end, I think it is very, very important, because if I spent time coming up with a research article and doing research and it took me years, if somebody's going to use it, I would expect that they would give me credit for what I've done. So although it is, it is boring and, you don't really want to do it, I feel like it's really important to do, because you need to give credit to whoever's work you're taking from.
So you guys have all said that citations are kind of horrible and difficult. Why do you think that students have a hard time with them?
I think students have a hard time with citations because they do exactly what I do, and is wait till the end to do your citations. I think what Sydney said was really brilliant, of doing your citations while you're doing your work. But I do mine at the end. I think people are just tired at that point where they're just like, something's got to give. I'm up till 3 o'clock in the morning writing this paper, and they just will either not cite it completely or not cite it at all. And that's really where the struggle is.
I think it's a combination of two things. Like Anthony was saying, it's kind of students don't really know how to use it, and they're kind of waiting until that last minute to even figure out how to use it, and they don't ask their professor, and their professor can be like, well, it would have took me 5 minutes to explain it to you, or it would have took me 5 minutes to just send you a link to how to do it. And I think the second thing is we kind of wait until 3 a.m. to start that paper, and then you write it in 2 hours, and you're like, oh, this paper is great. I have all these quotes from all these websites that I found, I kind of just put them all together, and then you're like, I can go to bed now, and then I can worry about the citations later, or I can email my teacher later, or she won't notice that I've cited this website. And they go to bed, and then they print out their paper and they give it to their professor, and they don't think twice about it. But then when you get an email a week later from the academic integrity officer saying, hey, you've been reported for academic disintegrity.
Misconduct.
Misconduct.
It's all good.
Let's think of the word will be.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, if you would have waited that extra hour, you would have started that paper earlier, you wouldn't have to worry about this now.
I think that's why it's important to use a lot of the resources we have on campus, like the academic link and like the librarians and like teachers, because it makes it easier for students to know this is how I need to do it and this is how I'll do it from now on.
So a couple of you mentioned resources that you tried when you were having questions about your citations. I know you had mentioned EasyBib, even though a couple of you said you don't use it so much anymore, and also talking to your professor. Have any of you guys looked at any other things that would help you with your citations, or asked anybody who would help you?
Yeah, for sure. I use Al Purdue online. They have some really great resources there. And if I still have more questions, I will go to one of the librarians, and they're just awesome resource we have here at Stevenson that are able to sort of walk you through citations. They'll bring out, a citation book that nobody ever uses anymore because no one uses books anymore, and they'll help you work through what your citation needs to look like. In the end, it may be a tedious and long process, but it's just such a great resource to have.
I also use OWL at Purdue. I know for my psychiatric nursing class, we had to do a presentation on a movie, and I had never cited a movie a day in my life. So I just went there, and I was able to correctly cite the movie using the website. Also, teachers are also a great resource, even if you want to go to them after class, or you want to stop by their office hours, just to simply ask them. I mean, you might feel like it's not that big to ask them, like, hey, can you help me with my citation? But it actually really truly matters. So even if you just take the time out to go to your teacher, stop by the library, use OWL at Purdue, it's worth it.
So we've talked about some of the more nebulous reasons that we cite, and then you've told me all about the work that you have to do to actually create your citations and maybe check with an outside resource and talk to a professor. All these steps that you have to take, are they worth it to you?
Yeah, I definitely think so. Because in the end, when someone's reading a work that I wrote, I want them to look at it and be like, wow, he made a really cohesive and strong argument. And it's reinforced with the research that he did. They can read my paper and look at it and be like, wow, this guy knows what he's talking about. He did his research. He made a very compelling argument. That's what I'd like to be known for, was the argument that I made using the research that I properly cited and gave those researchers the credit for. That's my end goal, really. That's what makes it worth it for me.
I want someone to read my paper at the end of the day and be like, oh, I've read that article online before. She cited it very well, but she took it in a totally different direction. And I just want someone to be like, yeah, she had a great argument. She used all these sources that were pretty much contradicting her, but she took it a different way, and it was a fantastic paper. I want my professors at the end of the day know that I didn't just make this up out of nowhere, that I sat down for hours and researched and put my ideas together, put my thoughts together, and made this very cohesive paper that gave me a good grade. I take citation and I take being very honest with my work seriously, is because for 4 years you're working towards this degree. You're putting in money, you're putting in time, you're putting in effort, you're putting in tears sometimes, you're putting in late nights. You're working for this degree. Someone that's cheated their way through it is getting that same degree, but they didn't earn it the way you did.
So when I walk across the stage, when I graduate, I want to know that I'm receiving my degree in honesty and that I've done the hard work. I'm studying to be a nurse, and if it's found that I have plagiarized and I haven't been doing honest work, who's gonna want to hire me? Who's gonna want me to take care of them? And then that blocks me in the future, because I ultimately want to go back to get my master's. You can't get your master's in nursing without experience, and then you can't get experience if you haven't done honest work. So it's really, really, really important to be honest about what you do, and please try not to plagiarize.